Hello, Kat here. Today I'm going to be talking about one of my February reads for F/F February, Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. Okay, so let me tell you why this book was so amazing. When the book opens, you are following the main character, whose name is Nancy, and she comes from a seaside town where everyone is into oyster farming, oyster cultivation, and oyster restaurants. And one day, she goes to the theater with her family, and she sees a male impersonator there at the music hall whose name is Kitty Butler. And immediately, she's swept away and she can't get enough of Kitty Butler's act, and she goes every day for a week. But she just knows she has to be as close to Kitty Butler as she can. So over time, they build a relationship. Nancy ends up going backstage and she meets Kitty. They develop a friendship. Over time, the friendship builds into a really close friendship, and Kitty, who's going back to London, asks Nancy if she will be her dresser and come with her. Nancy, she grabs onto it immediately and she decides she's gonna leave and go with Kitty to London. So she breaks the news to her family. They're sad, but her parents would rather see her go and with happiness than to make her stay and miserable her whole life in the small oyster town. Even though the action was slow in the beginning, I was really struck by how beautiful the description of London, even the gritty parts are. So at that time, the focus is really on building the world of first the oyster town and then of London. And there's a direct juxtaposition of her oyster town had simpler rules but also more conservative rules, and then London is completely new and glittering to her, and she's just so excited to be there. Kitty, of course, really wants fame and fortune and to make her way on the big stage. So that's kind of the setting of the very beginning of the book. After that, there's a time where there's like the first half of her life, which is, I would say, innocence, and then the second half, which is learning more about the world, and the part that divides them is there's a betrayal. So the time between the betrayal and the start of her second life in London was really slow, so I almost thinking to put the book down, because at that point I was like, how much longer can we wallow? But then I read like one page more and I was like, okay, you got me again. I'm so hooked. What is happening? I don't know. From there was just a whirlwind of male impersonators, prostitution, and toms, which is the London word of that time for lesbians, and rent boys, which is the term of that time for male prostitutes, and women's movement and sapphic lovers. From there, it was like I could not put it down. I just had to read it immediately and I was so hooked. So if you're reading the book and you're like, oh, this is good in the beginning, and then you hit that bit of a slow patch, just know it is like the calm before the most epic lesbian adventure, love / social movement story of all time, and you will be totally swept away. And I was like, oh my god, this is amazing. I can see why everyone loves it. I was also quite surprised when I read Sarah Waters' other book, Fingersmith. It was subtly erotic, whereas this book is just down and out erotic, without being vulgar, of course. So it was quite sexually explicit, and if you don't like sexually explicit scenes, or if you don't like sexual manipulation, and if you don't like viewing the sexual life of sex workers, such as prostitutes, male or female, then you might have a little bit of a problem with it, but I have no problem reading that, so I found those bits to be extremely intriguing, and I didn't know about it. I'd never read about it before in London during that time. I just thought it was so fascinating and so well written. And I actually researched it, and it's highly accurate. Obviously, other than the characters being together because they're fiction. Yeah, so I was just fascinated and blown away by it. Please let me know what you think as well, because I know that a lot of people love it, and they also love Fingersmith, but I thought Tipping the Velvet was just so like on a heavenly plane compared to Fingersmith. Also, it might just be up to tastes about like what the subject matter was, because the very opening paragraph of Tipping the Velvet is describing the flesh of an oyster, and obviously that's a well-used metaphor for the vagina, so I was not shocked that it got more explicit as it went on. So the themes dealt with in this book include gender identity, sexual identity, cross-dressing, gender roles within society. I would recommend this book as a classic lesbian novel. Of course, it's already recommended by like Everyone is a classic lesbian novel. I recommend it for readers who appreciate really lush descriptions and for readers who appreciate themes of sexual awakening. If you've read The Lighthouse, I would say that I much prefer this to The Lighthouse, and it is definitely a tale of budding sexual awakening, for sure. So I think if you like all of the things that I've listed, cross-dressing, prostitution, London, gritty underbelly, theater, oyster, small town versus big town, sexual depravity versus innocence, lesbian life in London during that time period, then I think that you would really love this book, and I highly recommend it. So if you read it, please let me know, and also let me know if you agree with me, don't agree with me, particularly about the middle section, because I found it slow, but it was well worth the wait. So if you get to that section and you're like, oh, it's like a little slow, just keep going, because I promise you, you will be well rewarded. So yeah, that's the end of my review for Tipping the Velvet by Sarah Waters. Okay, I'll see you next time. Happy reading! Bye!